Hello folks, and welcome back to another episode of GGS2 Case 4. So here we are talking to Mr. Daemwatchon now, and we're just gonna discuss on what exactly happened back then, and just catch up on things now that he's, not about to jump off of anything, you know? So, let's go. Gregson's request.
Apparently, Detective Gregson was ordered to carry out some special duties. He needed to investigate something without Scotland Yard knowing about it.
They must have been investigations regarding the Grim Reaper's prey.
That's when he'd give me his ID and have me act as his proxy.
So you posed as Detective Gregson and conducted the investigations then?
No, I'm just a peddler. I couldn't possibly conduct investigations. I just went to the designated places and did things in order to draw attention to myself. In order to leave an impression with the people at that place, that a detective named Gregson was here.
So then, did you do so the day before the incident as well?
Yes. I was told to go to Lime Street where the Red-Headed League was and make a little scene. And when I tried waving around the ID and making a scene like I usually did...
You got locked up by the criminals. Hi, Iris! I kind of forgot you were with us? Wait, what?
Yes, that's what happened.
So you always make that sort of scene while waving around the ID like that?
Yes, that was my role.
I guess that's a legendary detective for you, for better or worse.
Well, as you can see, I've got a bruise around my neck, but they released me the next morning as they'd promised.
It looked like they wouldn't give you the ID back, though.
I'd promised to meet him in that room at 5 PM that day in order to give him my report, but when I returned to Fresno Street, I heard that gunshot.
The truth about the jailbreak.
June 17th, 10 years ago. 12 o'clock midnight. That was the time that the execution was scheduled for.
But the professor's execution was never carried out, was it? Far from it. The execution itself was used in order to enact the jailbreak plan. What a terrifying plan.
Berkeley is known for having the heaviest security of any prison in England. The rules of the prison stipulate that one must undergo numerous inspections when entering and leaving the premises. But there was one exception. No. Maybe it's better to say that there was one blind spot.
Now I feel like I understand. That exception was the casket that the executed prisoner's body was put in, wasn't it?
Precisely. Once the prisoner has taken their last breath following execution, they're pronounced dead by the coroner, and immediately receive a burial in Lowgate Cemetery behind the prison. At that point, the casket with the body in it is set aside, and the head jailer signs a confirmation form, after which no one is allowed to touch it. When the execution is carried out, no one is allowed to enter the room but the executioner and the coroner. I waited in the room next door and awaited the death confirmation report. When I went to the morgue, there was a single casket sitting there as usual. Normally, I would have checked inside the casket and signed the form. Then it would have been nailed shut. But that day, for some reason, the lid of the casket had already been nailed shut.
What?
I didn't think too much of it at the time. I just figured the vice head jailer had run the check and nailed it shut.
So then, in that casket...
Asogi Genshin was likely holding his breath in there, having just managed to escape his execution. The casket was then carried to Lowgate Cemetery, as per regulations.
There probably wasn't more than a few hours worth of air in that casket. And the very night he was buried, someone dug him up again. But, in the end, Genshin-sama was shot in Lowgate Cemetery. What on earth happened at Lowgate Cemetery that night?
I don't know. There are only two things I can say for sure. Asogi's jailbreak would have been impossible without the cooperation of someone inside the prison. And that collaborator wasn't me. That's all.
Condemned prisoner Asogi. You know, of course, right, Daemwatchon-san? That Asogi Genshin was the professor.
Yes, I remember well, even now.
Would you mind telling us about it?
I can't say I had a particularly long period of contact with that condemned prisoner. He was made to stand as a defendant in that unpublicized trial, conducted purely by members of the justice system. After that, the fate that awaited him was the speediest possible execution.
And the verdict that was handed down to him was decided before the trial ever started, wasn't it? It was an unusual time between England and Japan, as they just entered a treaty with each other. They needed to bring the incident to the swiftest conclusion possible.
He spent his final time, adding up to less than a week, in that solitary cell. As the head jailer, I was to supervise him in his solitary cell until it was time for his execution. But his virtuous and strong spirit left a deep impression on me.
Strong spirit.
In spite of having committed the very serious crime of murdering numerous people, he was always calm and polite, and an incredibly knowledgeable gentleman. That's why I disbelievingly asked Asogi. Were you really the one who killed those 5 aristocrats?
I am indeed an unforgivable felon, with blood on my hands.
The next day, the top-secret trial was carried out, and the planned verdict was handed down.
Guilty.
Asogi Genshin returned to his cell that night. And that's when I saw something odd.
Something odd? What on earth did you see?
A will. Asogi Genshin's will.
Asogi's will.
It happened on the night he received his guilty verdict at the top-secret trial. I was on patrol, and I peeked into Asogi's cell. He had what appeared to be some sort of document in his hand.
A document? And that document was a will?
When he noticed me there, he hastily hid it.
But what was odd about that? I should think it would be completely normal for a prisoner who would soon be meeting his end.
Yes, however, there were unique circumstances here.
Unique?
Asogi was imprisoned in a cell especially for death row inmates, but excluding one specific type of item, he was permitted to bring personal items into the cell.
Personal items in his cell? That does sound pretty unique.
He was unquestionably a felon who had killed 5 aristocrats, but on the other hand, he was also a guest dispatched by Japan. The Great British Empire granted him as much freedom as possible in the few days leading up to his death.
Almost kind of like Giselle, except Giselle get to go to the beach. By the way, what was the one specific type of item he wasn't permitted?
Actually, the item was writing supplies. To be more specific, pen and paper.
So in other words, he was forbidden to leave any records, correct?
Apparently so. Where on earth did he get those things? The regulations specified that any scraps of paper would be confiscated. Asogi hid the document behind his back and begged me desperately. What was that you just hid?
Please ignore it. It's a matter of life and death to me.
But it's against regulations.
You're the only one who's seen it, as long as you don't tell anyone.
All right then. So, what is that document?
My will. This will is my final weapon. His will was a weapon?
I agreed to ignore the will and didn't confiscate it. But then, to my surprise, the will later vanished.
What? It vanished? It sounds as though there's more to the story of this curious will. The will's disappearance.
In the end, I was the only one who saw that will.
But then it ended up disappearing.
It was after Asogi's execution.
Well, that ended up being a jailbreak though.
The jailers were gathering up the personal effects Asogi had left in his cell. All the items he'd left behind were to be sent to his family in Japan.
You mean to Kazuma-sama? So does that mean it vanished? From among the items he left behind? His will, I mean.
Yes, exactly. I didn't search them myself, but Chief Officer Barricade was shouting, "It should be there somewhere!"
But that seems awfully strange. Strange? After all, wasn't Daemwatchon-sama the only one who should have known of its existence? So why then did the chief officer know about it? You're right.
I'm afraid I don't know either. However, it seemed like the chief officer knew of that will all along. And then he proceeded to refer to that will as the Asogi file.
Asogi file.
I don't know what happened after that. after all. I believe you know what followed for me.
The disciplinary dismissal, and the loss of his memories.
I'd forgotten all of that until today. I can't imagine that it has anything to do with this case, though.
That's alright. Thank you for speaking with us.
I think that's about all I can tell you. My wife Anna will be here soon. Do you mind?
Sure. Thanks again. What will you do now, Daemwatchon-sama?
Posing as a detective, as you might imagine, was a crime. Once I've recovered, I'll likely be arrested.
I'm really sorry about all this.
No. I chose this path myself. I knew that this would catch up with me someday.
Well, take care. We'll be heading out.
Ah! That's right! Can I say just one more thing?
Calm down! Sure. What is it?
About the Asogi file. I'd appreciate it if you'd kept what I told you a secret.
Is there some reason for that?
Apparently the Asogi file was a rather high-level secret. If it gets out that I remembered its existence, I can't help feeling that something bad might happen.
I understand. The will that Asogi Genshin secretly had right before his death. He considered that his final weapon. I wonder if that could have had anything to do with his escape plan. As for someone who might know more about that document, naturally that'd be Damie's boss. Shall we pay Barclay Prison one more visit? Didn't we just say, didn't David just ask not to bring it up? Okay, whatever. Poor Daemwatchon. I guess we're done talking. So, where are we going? We're going to the forensics lab. Entrance. As soon as I figure out how do I get there? Oh, no. Okay, I guess it's the very bottom option then. Okay, very bottom option. The forensics lab. Let's go. Back to this creepy place again. Same day, unspecified time, the forensic pathology lab. The atmosphere in this forensic pathology lab is still as stifling as ever. Ah, it's probably because of all the spirits of the people who have been autopsied here hanging around. But there's a sweet scent in the air that smells like roses now. So that must mean that there's a smell in here that needed an even stronger one in order to get rid of it. Hey, Iris-chan? Could you stop saying terrifying stuff like that? I wonder what that noise was. Dr. Gulane? Oh god!
Yes?
What was that sound just now?
I was sharpening my lancet. If I don't service my tools every day, they'll die.
Sure.
When you run a perfectly sharpened lancet along the skin, it cuts like melted cheese. Would you like to see?
Yes, I think I would.
In that case, you don't mind, do you?
Huh? Yes, I mind a lot. Maybe, another time. She clicked her tongue at me. Anyway, let's hear what she has to say. Oh man, she has to do this animation in front of me while I look at stuff. Okay. I think this is what I have to hit. These are blades and other tools lined up on the bed. I wouldn't think much of them if I saw them separately, but why do they seem so ominous when you put them all together? I think perhaps you should try not to think about it too much.
That's the dissection gurney Mama used. It's a bit tall for me. Oh, yeah?
Sorry, this is hard going back and forth.
It's so high that if you fall off while napping on it, it really hurts.
What? You sleep on this bed?
By the time I finish my autopsies, it's late at night. Going home at that hour is a pain. But when I sleep here, I have bad dreams and fall out of bed. So I like to exchange this bed for a slightly lower one.
I think you should just go home at night. There's something pale floating in this big glass jar. It's probably fruit wine or pickled plums, or something along those lines. Yes, let's just tell ourselves it's something peaceful.
Oh, you're talking about those samples. That one's a monkey's brain.
Huh?
The way it's made isn't that different from a human, so it's useful for studying. The thing beside it is a monkey's...
Alright. I don't need to hear any more about monkeys.
I see.
Oh, you are right. The few moments when we thought they were pickled plums seemed so long ago. There are various bottles of pharmaceuticals arranged in this cabinet. The label on this bottle says poison. Huh. There are even some that look like salt and pepper shakers at a glance. Oh, the labels say salt and pepper on them. I guess she must live here sometimes. Talk about living right alongside death. Wow. The atmosphere of this desk has really changed, huh?
That's because Gulene-sama...
Why? That's because Gulene-sama is still a young maiden. Sorry, I'm doing an effect when I'm doing Gulene because she's got a mask, so now I have to adjust going back and forth. There's some cute and stunning handmade stuffed animals here. You're right. I guess Gulene-san is a girl after all.
They're for practice.
Huh?
Mama always said that when it comes to autopsies and surgery, precision and speed are important. So, I practice making 3 stuffed animals a day with needle and thread.
Oh, really?
I used to give them livers and stomachs and small intestines and such, but my mama begged me to make cuter ones.
I guess the situation is a bit different from how I imagined it. Oh, this is a pretty tasteful display cabinet. The cherry wood is polished to a nice luster and it's got detailed decorative engraving on it. Western cabinet makers do some pretty impressive work too, huh?
10 people.
Huh?
10 people's bones were put together to make that one perfect specimen. I'm really proud of that specimen.
It was the display cabinet that I was complimenting. I plan to go the rest of my life ignoring the scary bones inside.
Weird Oriental.
You're both a little odd if you ask me. This is a crow and an owl, isn't it? I can't help noticing that they haven't moved an inch since this whole time. Well, I don't suppose they would. They're both stuffed, after all. Oh, I had a feeling they might be. And here I was telling myself they're just sleeping with their eyes open. That's true. If you're going to decorate your room with something, a Daruma doll would be the more peaceful choice. Okay, we still have 4 minutes left before this we run out of time, but at this point it's probably best to hold off talking with Miss Gulane here for the next video, and so we don't have to like cut awkwardly in the middle of having a conversation with her. So, I will see you guys then. Gonna leave you with that footage.